All right. Ask me anything about the A/B testing platform, and I'll make it up. So this session, apologize if anyone was in here for the TikTok session. That's not obviously my session. I will promise you, though, I hope that this will be very interesting. If you're working in any AI-related activities, or if you're engaging business teams, or maybe you're on the business side, you're trying to figure out how to kind of get people excited and confident on how to use AI. I'm going to walk through some specific examples for how I do that. I build semantic layers and data products and agents with business teams, and that's what this session is about. So I'll see some nodding heads. Sounds like there may be some interest. Fantastic. Awesome. Great. Thank you for staying. What I will do, though, is we will take a picture and I will post this on TikTok, and maybe we'll get a little bit of best of both worlds. So fantastic. Welcome to the session. So let's start by kind of setting a little bit of context, right? So how many of us in this room, if I see the word data product, is just by a show of hands, is that a term that we're familiar with? Quite a few of us, right? If we start talking about semantic layers, is that kind of another topic that I think most of us fantastic, right? So one of the challenges I think we all have when we start to introduce any kind of, first of all, AI is a very generic term. When you start to introduce any kind of an AI solution to business teams, there's initially a bit of a nervousness, right? There's nervousness on the business side because I'm afraid you're going to bring some big technical challenge to me. There's nervousness on the IT side because I'm not sure that I can meet the expectations that ChatGPT has already set with our business teams. And so there's a little bit of uncomfort, so to speak, in kind of how we start to kind of move forward with business teams. When I start a conversation with a business team, I don't show them this, right? You know, this is kind of my ecosystem for how I build the agents on the far left side of the picture. That's not where I start, because it would probably kind of freak them out if you're starting to talk with a customer about the technical details. But there's a lot on this slide that I think is really important for us to understand, and I think you guys will agree with me, is the first challenge is on the far right side of the page, right? If you're on the business side, before you can even start to take advantage or start to even feel comfortable with AI, you gotta get comfortable with data. You gotta understand your data. And I know a little bit about me. My name is Adrian Estala. I'm the CDO at Starburst. I was a CDO before I joined Starburst, kind of on this side, on the vendor side. I was a CDO kind of at a business, a company you guys might know called Shell. And when I was a CDO, a lot of my business teams would struggle because they couldn't get their data, they didn't understand their data, or it took way too long for IT to give them the data that they wanted, right? So I'm in the business and I'm waiting, I don't understand, and ultimately I can't solve my problems. And it's because of the complexity that we have on the back end. When I sit down with business teams today to kind of solve an AI problem or solve a data problem, I don't even start with technology. I start with a very simple semantic layer. A business-faced semantic layer. I talk to business teams and I say, how do you see your data? How do you use your data? How would you describe your data? And so I'll come back to this slide here at the end, but my first step in working with business teams is really building a semantic layer with business teams. What's different about a semantic layer in modern terms, the way we think about this today versus the way, by the way, we've been building ontologies. If you're in IT, we've probably been doing this for 15 years, kind of thinking of some way to build a data architecture or a framework or some kind of ontology to describe data. We've been doing that for a long time. What we've always struggled with is trying to create something that business teams actually understand. Or we try to do something similar for the enterprise, and it doesn't make sense to any one person, even though at a high level it might make sense. Or I try to build something for one individual, but it doesn't make any sense for anybody else. So the challenge with semantic layers ultimately, I think, is that the way that we used to build them took way too much time, and they never really gave any individual, they were never personalized, right? Today, when we build semantic layers, we build them off logical data products, and we build them pretty quickly, right? And so what I mean by we build them pretty quickly is the semantic layers that I build with business teams, I don't wait months or years to kind of get it in order. I sit down with a team, come up with a really simple framework to say, what are your big entities? What are your big themes? What are, you might call them dimensions. What are the contexts you want to kind of fulfill or you want to actually use to support those big themes? And then we build a semantic layer together, right? So we build a data product semantic layer with the business teams kind of together in the room. This presentation, when I started, I said this is about empowering the business to use AI. That's the first kind of secret, right? So step one, if you want to get your business teams to really learn to trust AI, the first thing you got to do is really get them to trust the data. And when they build a semantic layer with you in the room, I typically do a workshop. We kind of draw on a whiteboard, we create the semantic layer, and then within a week, I show them the data products they designed. Here, this was a semantic layer you drew up. Come over here. Here's the actual data products you designed. And they can start to actually see and collect and look at the actual data in those data products. Doing that fast and doing that with them pays dividends. It helps you because when you get to the next phase of starting to use AI across the data, they are the teams that put the data in the box, right? So I'm going to just pause for a second. How many of us have tried to build semantic layers in our past IT careers? Maybe a couple of us, okay. Was it a technical semantic layer or was it a business-facing semantic layer? Technical, right? Yeah, we did one back in my old world. I had 18 IBM guys build me one. I think it took a year and a half. And I took it to my business teams. I said, hey, look at this great thing. And they said, yeah, it doesn't work for me, right? I sit down with business teams. Oftentimes, most of my customers are in the banking space. I'll sit down with loans or consumer or risk teams. We'll build a semantic layer, and for the first time, they'll say, I've never understood my data. I always worried about the complexity in the back end. We were always talking about sources and systems, and now I'm actually talking about data products that I can actually see and understand. If I get that semantic layer working, immediately I'm able to kind of pull those logical data products, right? I'm not talking about physical models that I'm migrating into a warehouse somewhere. I'm talking about a logical data product that I basically built off a query that I'm able to make available to business teams in a way they understand. So my first step isn't even jumping right into AI. My first step is to use a semantic layer with tools they already trust, tools they already know, right? Let me feed your dashboard. Let me feed your application. Let me feed your embedded analytics with something you can reuse. When we build a strategy for these semantic layers, so if I sit at a CDO level and I'm looking down and I'm trying to figure out how I want to drive this model across the enterprise, one of the key principles that I like to use is I want to promote 80% reuse of the semantic layer. I would like most of my teams to reuse the semantic layer, and maybe there's a 20% that needs something different. If you work in data engineering or if you work kind of on the consumer side, you're probably listening to me saying there's no freaking way, right? And oftentimes when I talk to BI teams, they're like, oh yeah, no, Adrian, I'm special. My schema needs to look differently. I did a project recently where we had 1,600 tables and views and Teradata, and we replaced it with 56 data products in a kind of model that looks similar to this, right? 1,600 duplicate views and tables, 56 reusable data products. When teams start to see what's in there, and when teams realize I can reuse something that's certified, I can reuse something that other people are using, it's really a game changer for them because it's much faster and it creates a lot more confidence and it also creates a lot more consistency on the back end, right? So it's a big win. You got to kind of work with teams to get there, but once you get there, they start to really buy in. Everybody wants to reuse reusable data products. The nice thing about these reusable data products that business teams understand in the semantic layer is you start to then create guardrails. Your business teams, if you talk to your business teams about AI, and I'm not sure there's anybody here that would, on the business side, that would kind of, jump up and agree with me or disagree with me, but typically when I talk to business teams, what they're looking for is they want to experiment faster with AI, right? There's a number of different, if you could say, hey, go out into the Big Data London arena, and I want you to pick one or two agents you want to test out. That's all you can pick is one or two. And then come back and hope that it wins in your business. Or would you rather say, go out there and pick every one that you think might work? If I give you the opportunity to experiment faster and experiment with more and experiment for less, meaning I can try more AI tools in the front end, they're all going to use the same data semantic layer, if you will. Business teams might have different ones, but for the most part, they're going to get data delivered the same way. It's not data that you've spent a year migrating. It's data that you've spent maybe a couple of months querying, so to speak, right? I've built a very fast semantic layer. When you can allow your business teams to experiment faster, experiment for less, and experiment with more, that's a winning strategy for AI, right? Because then they're going to be able to do 10 projects in 10 weeks. Oftentimes in a lot of our companies, a lot of our teams today on the AI side, it's taking us 12 months, 18 months to kind of get an AI project off the ground, and we don't get the business involved till close to the end, and then we hope it succeeds. What if you get the business involved sooner, and what if you do 10 projects in 10 weeks, right? That's kind of the differentiator here. If you can build a semantic layer, it gives you guardrails. We used to say, if you want to drive fast, you better have some really good brakes. The semantic layer, these governed data products, give you really good brakes. They give you the fantastic guardrails that you can trust, so you can allow your business teams to move a little faster. Oops. There we go. If you're starting to build agents, kind of a new term, I'm going to make a t-shirt. I don't know if you've heard it before. If you have, then maybe I didn't invent it, but I love the term big data, small agent. I think what's winning right now are small, personalized agents. If I can sit with a business team and build them an agent that they can use in their function, maybe it's something simple like a conversational agent, right? You start small with business teams and get them involved early and get them to trust and get them to really understand the AI capabilities, then you kind of set yourselves up for success. I think when you start to look at the big AI wins, it's not going to be an IT guy waving the flag saying, look at this big AI solution I built. It's going to be business teams waving their flags to say, look at the process that I automated. Look at the new market that I entered. Look at the efficiencies that I've created, right? So we're looking for business wins. If you start small, big data, small agent with a business team, make their data available to them in terms of data products they understand, then you can start to scale up, right? And what happens is, and this is happening to me recently, when you get business teams working with agents, they start to invent, they start to promote, they start to ideate and come back with even better ideas. I have an agent that I built with a business team April the 14th. We built it, just the initial agent took a day to build it. April the 14th to today, if you look at how quickly we've evolved that agent just in a couple of months, is amazing. And it's not because we did anything on the IT side, it's because the business teams got so comfortable with the data, because the governance teams supported it, but ultimately what it came down to was just the ideas that we got from the business teams. They said, hold on a second, if you can do that, can you do this? And if you can do this, and you can do that, right? Our business teams understand the business challenges that they're facing much better than we do on the IT side. So I think what's really important early on is to kind of get them to buy in. And ultimately, if you get them bought in, they're going to drive faster, and then it's really time to scale. Let me go back to the picture that I drew a second ago. Oops, there we go. I may have to go over here. There we go. That's where I started. Does anybody have, if you think about your current, how many of us are building multi-agents in our current environments? More than one agent, a couple of us, right? In your multi-agent environment, do you have this notion of an orchestration agent, or how do you, so perfect. It's becoming pretty standard, I think, right? And so as we start to build, remember I started small with one agent. And then maybe that one agent becomes two agents for two different business teams. And maybe that becomes three agents for three business teams. What you ultimately will end up with is a multi-agent environment. When you get to that position, you're going to need some way to orchestrate the agent workflow. You'll have agent-to-agent communication. You'll have agent-to-LLM communication. And you're also going to have agent-to-Starburst communication. And typically, our customers like to build some type of orchestration agent. Think about LangGraph, if you're familiar with that, something like that, where you might be able to do the reasoning and the planning. What Starburst does, and typically what I do for our customers, going back to that semantic layer, is my focus is to make it really easy for business teams to say, I understand what AI can do. I understand, again, start small with something simple. I understand what a conversational agent could do for me. I know where to get the data. I'm off to the races. And once they start to build these simple conversational agents, then they'll start to automate. Well, hold on a second. what if I take this data and I pop it into this agent and I do something with it, and then I hit a button and it creates a forecast, or I hit a button and then it sends actions, or I hit a button and it does some additional analysis for me, right? And so your business teams will start to kind of lead and drive the innovation because they trust the data, because they have access to the front-end agents, and because they've got the right guardrails to make sure they don't make any big mistakes. Somebody wants to drive off the cliff, so to speak, right? They know that they'll hit the rail before they create risk for the company. And so they'll ultimately end up with something that might look something like this, where you've got Starburst in the back end and maybe other capabilities. Maybe you have a vector engine or a vector database back there somewhere, or a RAG engine. But ultimately, you want to be able to provide those tools in an easy way to the agents in the front end. I'm going to pause because I know a lot of you came in to talk TikTok. And so I'm talking business and AI. So I kind of flipped you on the topics. Do I have any questions or any thoughts? For anyone who's building it, somebody said over here we were building a semantic layer before, I think. How have you built it differently? Maybe. For the teams that said they're building data products. So who is building data products? Where are we building data products today? Are we building data products in the cloud? Are we building data products in our legacy systems? Maybe a little bit of both, sounds like. Okay. Yeah. How are you doing it in your organization? Semantic layer. Yeah. So he's modeling a very specific domain. Yeah. So you're not yet kind of reaching into the business side yet. Yeah. Got it. Because I think that's really the key to making this work ultimately, is to try to get your business teams engaged early. I'll say it again, I said it here at the beginning, was AI isn't something, we've been doing, if you have gray hair like me, we've been doing transformation for 30 years. Every transformational exercise that we've done, from cybersecurity in the 90s to SaaS to cloud to AI, the difference with AI is AI is truly business-led, right? And so this is about enabling business teams to lead with AI. And if you want to get your business teams to lead with AI, it has to start fundamentally with them understanding their data. If they're waiting for data, IT loses, because the business will find a way to get it some other way. If they don't understand their data, we all lose, because they're going to create risk for the company. And so the key kind of messages to take away from the session, and thank you for attending. Number one is business-facing semantic layer, I think, is a game changer for AI. Getting your business involved early is a key winning factor for the organization. And ultimately, once you start to run with the business teams, they're going to run a lot faster with you. So thank you very much for your time and your attention. Apologize it wasn't TikTok, but hopefully AI in the business sounded like it was interesting for you. Thank you very much.